Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 107 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Well, I'm actually trying to get through a lot of different Sentai seasons and Power Rangers seasons now in anticipation of Dino Charge ending Ninja. I still have several episodes to go for ToQger, of course, for the vlogs, and I need to watch everything from Mega Force and Super Mega Force, again, to just kind of get caught up on that. That being said, I've watched the first 19 episodes of Mega Force and about to go into the season finale and into Super Mega Force. And first off, I just want to go ahead and say that Mega Force is made of bad. It is terrible. I mean, talk about pandering and the lowest common denominator and bad dubbing and character development, plot holes. It's just... I mean, I really thought it was bad in the first couple of episodes that I watched. Then Robo Knight had to go and rap. Yes. But, amongst all the dreck of Mega Force and what I assume will be coming in Super Mega Force, all of which will be discussed in a later video, of course, there is one interesting thing that is brought up for basically a fraction of a second within Mega Force, and has implications, I think, with the Power Rangers series, and it's really something that hasn't fully been explored within the franchise. So today, we're going to go ahead and talk about what I assume is really just kind of a throwaway line that the writers didn't really care about, but when you actually think about it, it's very provocative, I would say. Okay, so what is it? So in the episode, The Human Factor, not to be confused with The Human Condition, yeah, it's two very similar titles within the same season, they're like 4 episodes apart. Anyway, but in that episode, The Human Factor, we're introduced to the new army of robots with Metal Alice and so forth and so forth. And of course, throughout the season, we know that Robo Knight is, well, a robot. And when he first encounters the robots, he's like, well, that's not a robot, that's not a monster, that's a robot like me. And there were a couple of attempts by Metal Alice within the preceding episodes to get him to, or actually in this episode too, to get him to switch to their side and fight against the humans. But Robo Knight's like, no, I protect the Earth and yada 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 and all that stuff. But within this episode, shortly after their first encounter with the robots, Noah, Jake, and Troy are all sitting at Ernie's brain freeze, talking about the battle. And they bring up the point that Robo Knight recognized that the robots they were fighting were just like him, that they were his own kind, his people, if you will. And Troy points out that he hesitated before engaging them. Now, this is, first of all, let's throw out the entire continuity of the fact that the whole robot thing has been addressed in the past, and that robots, are allies and villains, and in the future of SPD, there'll be allies and issues with them, and of course, in the year 3000. I mean, we've learned in 20 years that there are pros and cons to robots, and this whole discussion is moot because, one, they don't really further it in this season, and 2, these are lessons we've already learned as fans of the franchise, but they don't seem to know anything here. I will remind you, it's in the same continuity with the other seasons, as we will find out in Super Mega Force, yet any discussions or anything that's brought up about artificial intelligence in previous seasons is never brought up within the context of Mega Force, but that is a discussion for another time. But what Troy says that got me to this conversation is that Robo Knight hesitated when he was fighting his own kind. And that to me means that Robo Knight recognizes that these robots are like him, and that he, at some level, or again, this is what is intended from the dialogue, that he cannot harm somebody of his own kind, or that he has reservations about doing that some part of his programming says it is morally wrong to hurt something that is just like me. Which in itself is an interesting, argument about artificial intelligence and artificial life. Robo Knight's place within the series, or really just his place in general amongst Earth and humans and everything. But when I thought about that line a little bit more, I didn't look at it in the context of robots, but I'm like, why is this something that has never been brought up with humans in the series? And let me point this out. All throughout Power Rangers, with a few notable exceptions I will talk about, the Power Rangers have always fought monsters, aliens, demons, robots. They've always fought against things that are non-human. Again, a few exceptions that we'll get to. And in all those instances, whether it be from the first episode of Day of the Dumpster up until, the Super Mega Force Final, they've had no issue with killing or destroying those monsters, those creatures, those creations. It's always been a us versus them mentality in Power Rangers, to where people like the peaceful and life-loving Trini will take the skull of a monster and destroy it in magma. That somebody like that can do that type of violence against another living being. And of course you can justify that, saying, well, they're monsters or they're aliens that are trying to attack us. It is us versus them. One of the arguments about the Borg in Star Trek, why you don't try to liberate drones, is that the Borg themselves, it's basically de facto war against everybody. That if you are not Borg, you are target. Therefore, is justified to fight against the Borg and kill them because, everybody is an enemy and you shouldn't have any remorse and so forth and all that. That's an argument that I kind of take issue with on a couple of levels, but I understand it and I agree with some of the points that are made with it. But in Power Rangers, it's always Rita creates a monster, they call it the Sword, and destroy it. And then that's the end of it. There's no hand-wringing or contemplation over the fact that we just killed a life form. Not an innocent life form, one that caused death and destruction, or in some cases, monsters who did not even cause the death of people, maybe just some property damage. And yet the Power Rangers in multiple seasons will just eliminate them, snuff them out. And then that's the end of it. Now, we do have seasons like Time Force and SPD, which they cryo-freeze them or put them in some sort of suspended state, which is an interesting argument within itself, because anybody notice that the Rangers who are from the future, whether it's 2025 or the year 3000, they capture rather than destroy their enemies? That's kind of an interesting thing to go ahead and talk about for a later time. But in the context of the modern day, whatever you want to call that, Power Rangers, they're always destroying monsters, robots, and aliens with no regard for life and all that. But there are very few times in which the Rangers actually engage against humans within the series, where they will actually fight human versus human. But the problem is we never bring up the discussion of maybe killing those people. And here are a couple of examples that I want to bring up to illustrate this point. First of all, let's take a look at SPD's A Squad. Now, we know in the series that they have to defeat the A Squad, they gotta defeat Grum and all that kind of stuff. And we know that they're traitors and that they've been working for Grum and all this other kind of stuff, working for Omni and so forth. But it's never discussed within the series that they think they should kill the A Squad. It's never brought up that they have done such wicked things, that they've manipulated them, that they deserve the death penalty, as it were. That they deserve to die for their actions. Now, I will concede to the fact that they haven't really done anything that particularly evil. All they've really done was kind of led to the capture of Kruger. That's pretty much the extent of their evil deeds, at least from what we see. But it's never once discussed that that is an option. Now, of course, in SPD, you capture your villains, and that's just kind of the way it goes. So that's kind of a way to really, hand wave the situation, I think. But let's take a look at Jungle Fury and with the Dai Shi thing. There is concern that Casey has that Jared, may be destroyed and all that, but everybody's belief is, oh, Jared's not in there anymore. It's completely Dai Shi. It's a spirit. He's already dead, basically. But the discussion has never really brought up that maybe Jared's alive and we should not kill him. Or that maybe Jared feels that all the death and destruction that he has brought, that maybe he should die for his actions. There's never that kind of debate there. And anytime they do fight Dai Shi, it's never they're fighting Jared, they're fighting Dai Shi. Because, again, he is in possession of the body. And I think one of the more, the ones that we look at, or here's an interesting one to really look at. The Green Ranger. At no point in the Green with Evil saga is it ever considered that they should kill Tommy. It's not even a question. Like, we have to save him. We have to destroy the sword, which is, the MacGuffin, the scapegoat, basically saying that if we destroy the sword, we don't have to kill Tommy. But I ask you, what if the sword need not be destroyed? What if they destroy the sword and Tommy is still under Rita's influence? Then what do you do? Or what if Rita never brainwashed Tommy? What if Tommy was just some sort of punk who liked death and destruction and wanted to wear black trench coats and shoot people up? I mean, then what do you do in that situation? The Power Rangers, again, and let's look at Mighty Morphin just as an example here, up to Green with Evil. Every villain that they had fought thus far, they had destroyed with no thought we just killed somebody, that we just snuffed out a life from existence. There's never that type of discussion or concern. And when we get to Tommy, they don't even have to talk about it. It's like, we're just going to break the spell. But what if Tommy became such a threat that you had to kill him? Why is that not something that is kind of brought up within the context of Power Rangers as a whole? Why is it every time we have villains within the series, they are either, human villains at that they are turned good, or that they are mutated to beyond human, or anything like that? I think the closest we get to any type of remorse is Leo when he has to kill Trakina, and I think that particularly stems from the Stolen Beauty episode where, they have this kind of, she's human and she's beautiful and all that kind of stuff. It's a dumb episode, but it's kind of a callback to that particular episode. That is the extent that I can recall within the Power Rangers universe in which anybody has been remorseful for killing somebody within the series. Now, of course, there have been other characters who've died, like Loyax from Lost Galaxy, and people felt sad about it, but that was after building a rapport with them and getting to know them as, for lack of a better term, a person. So, I bring up all this to ask, why is it that we don't have a series where it is Power Rangers as humans versus human villains? And I don't mean like in the context of Astronema or Vipra who take on human appearance or things like that. I'm talking about, why don't we have them fighting actual people instead of monsters all the time? Because that to me brings up so many different possibilities of storytelling that you have. Because again, look, every Power Ranger season other than SPD and Time Force have killed the enemy. That's a plain fact. Wild Force, Mystic Force, In Space, Lightspeed Rescue, they've killed everybody, within the shows. But what if you put the Power Rangers up against other humans? Are they going to casually kill them? Look at the Dark Rangers for a minute here. When Lord Zed got them, he recruited, 5 teenagers with attitude, but they are supposed to be the darker versions. Well, what if he actually had succeeded in his plan, used the green crystal, powered up the Dark Rangers, got them Zords and all that stuff? Well, first of all, keep in mind, they're not brainwashed. They want to be part of Zed's army. So what do? Do you capture them and, put them away in jail? Or do you kill them if they become such a threat that you have to do that? What makes killing King Sphinx different from killing the Dark Red Ranger? Is there a difference? Should there be a difference? I mean, I guess a lot of this is getting into philosophy and, what is real and what is life, and a little bit of religion on, the beliefs and stuff. I mean, actually, what's kind of interesting when you think about it, at least in terms of, say, Lightspeed Rescue, we know for a fact that destroyed monsters go to the Shadow World, which, in essence, is kind of like Dante's Inferno. It's kind of like his version of hell. So we know that when the Rangers destroy the Lightspeed monsters, they know that they're condemning them to this particular afterlife. But what happens when you kill a human in Power Rangers? That's never really explored. Yeah, we've had, different deities and godlike beings in the series. I mean, we meet Thor and Loki, for crying out loud, in Operation Overdrive. But does that mean that by their presence that, that religion is true? That if you kill somebody, they go to Valhalla? Or, well, I don't know much about Norse mythology, but you get my point there. But why isn't this something that is thrown into the series? I mean, you would think after 20 years of fighting monsters that somebody would get the ideas like, let's pit them against their humans and let's make it difficult for them. I mean, imagine how much difficult it would be for the Rangers if they have to morally debate whether they should fight against other people and whether or not they should actually kill these people. And then, is it morally justified? I mean, if you made Goldar human, look at everything that Goldar ever did in the series, destroying things, and even, I mean, okay, here's the thing. They had to have killed people in the Power Rangers universe. That has had to have happened. There is no way around it. We saw in Megaforce that Admiral Malcor destroyed a moving train. I'm willing to bet somebody was driving that train. Therefore, somebody was killed. So, it's happened. Let's not, pretend it doesn't. It does happen. Humans are killed in Power Rangers by monster attacks. Plain and simple. No debating that. So, if it is a human that is doing these actions, do they deserve to die the same way that a monster does? And if all the villains ever know that, the villains know that they will destroy their monsters, do they think the Power Rangers would destroy humans? I mean, consider this. Look at Astrama and her plan for the Psycho Rangers. The Psycho Rangers are essentially robot cyborgs. There's some debate on that, okay? But they are not human. What if Astrama had decided to make them human? To, recruit 5 teenagers, like Lord Zed and all that, and put them in the suits. Now, Astrama knows from her memories of Andros and the others that they are good people, and we already saw previously in that season that Cassie was willing to defend Waspicable in the Wasp with a Heart episode because he didn't want to go ahead and fight. He didn't want to be a villain. So couldn't she have used that knowledge to say, hey, I'm going to put 5 humans in here and we're going to see if those Rangers can do what's necessary to defeat me? Because think of the moral dilemma that sets. The Psycho Rangers are first introduced, find out they're actual humans, maybe people the Rangers actually know, and the only way to stop them is you have to kill them. Again, imagine the storytelling possibilities that would have. And don't even just apply it to Power Rangers in Space. Look at every single season. What if Nick had to actually kill his father? He had to actually kill Leonbo in Mystic Force to stop him. That you couldn't just say, oh, we can bring him from the dark side again. Imagine that. Or what if in, RPM it wasn't robots they were facing? Or what if, Venjix had actually used human shields to protect him? Another thing I just kind of thought of, Operation Overdrive. The Rangers in Operation Overdrive don't kill anybody except really the Fear Cats and Flurious. But that's hand-waved away because Flurious is like, I gave up my humanity. I'm no longer human. And he became a monster. So that's like the only other instance I can think of now that I just think about it is like Flurious and Moltor. But of course, Flurious killed his own brother. And that's human on human death, basically. I just think about this topic, and I just think of, again, all the potential that it has in there and what it says about characters. I mean, seriously, look at a character like Trady. You look at her, she's innocent, she's pure, she's sweet, she's kind, she's noble, all that stuff. But then you have to remember she killed somebody. She killed a monster. Yes, it's a monster, but she killed somebody. A person. Now, those two don't really jive together now, do they? But, you look at somebody like, Eric, who I'm not even going to say is, he's very violent, yes, but he's never killed anybody in the series because he's always captured everybody. Kind of interesting, And then you get, characters like Madison, who's also nice and compassionate and the heart of the Mystic Force team, but she has killed people. She's killed monsters. Does she not feel remorse for that? I mean, for all the other sympathy that she shows within the series, you think that she would be like, maybe killing them is wrong. Maybe we should capture them or reform them or disable them in some way so they're no longer a threat. It's just, again, going back to the Megaforce episode, this is something that is brought up with Robo Knight exclusively, but is never brought up within the context of the Rangers. I mean, wouldn't that conversation have been interesting if Noah or somebody said, well, would we have done any different if we were fighting against humans? That's a good point. That's a conversation to be had. Instead of at the beginning where it's kind of like, oh, what would this place look like 1,000 years ago, blah, 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 this environmental message. You could have actually made that entire episode about the morality of killing your own kind or fighting against your own kind. But as in Neo-Saban tradition, we are stripping anything actually clever, creative, and good about the series and reducing it to fight sequences. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's basically what Megaforce is. It's very little, if any, story and just an excuse to get to one set piece to the other. Which I know a lot of you will argue a lot of other Power Rangers seasons are like that, but you know what? They had a story and a purpose. This is just fighting for the sake of fighting. But I'll get off my soapbox about that. So I know I've kind of rambled on here and I brought up, different points throughout the series and all that, but I think it's important that we address this within the Power Rangers universe. I mean, look at characters like Batman and Superman. Batman, he has two rules that he follows by. Never use a gun and never take a life. And that's what makes him the hero. Superman also doesn't take a life. But for those of you who've seen Man of Steel, and you know that he kills Zod at the end of the movie. And why does he kill Zod? Because he has to. He has no other option. He has no other choice, despite what some people may say. And what he does is not heroic. It does become necessary because Zod left him no other choice to do so. What about Power Rangers? We have the Rangers against human enemies. The entire season they try to fight them, to capture them, to break a spell, unbrainwash them, whatever the case may be. And in the end, they're like, there's nothing we can do. If we let this continue, more people are just going to continue to die, and the blood will be on our hands. And society will not kill them if we bring them in, because there's no death penalty, whatever and stuff. So the only way to end the situation is to kill them. Heck, even Data had to make that decision in The Most Toys from Next Generation, where he's like, I can't permit this to continue. And the only logical thing was to try and kill the guy. Why isn't that something that's worth exploring in Power Rangers? That Power Rangers have to kill humans to save the world. Again, just so many possibilities with that. And again, I came up with this idea from an offhanded, like a 30-second scene in an episode about robots. I don't know. I mean, would the Power Rangers hesitate? Would they recognize that that's a human, we shouldn't kill them? What would the Rangers do in that situation? I would seriously like to know. And again, there are a couple of episodes here and there where, they do have some human enemies, but it's always some way of destroy the cursed wolf mask, get the cyborg implants off her, and rescue her from Dark Spectre, or anything like that. There's always that way out. That's what I'm saying. There is a way out in these Power Rangers episodes for the human villains. But there's never, again, that discussion of, we need to do this if we're going to go ahead and save the world. And there's never that human-to-human interaction where the villains are humans. I mean, Raptor and I are going to do a podcast upcoming soon where we're going to talk about more implications of one idea regarding Power Rangers. But again, I just wonder what it would be like if the Power Rangers had to fight humans and had to come down to the point where they had to kill somebody. And what does that mean for our characters? How does that change the characters? How would the character of Troy, who's the most bland Red Ranger we've ever seen, how would he change if he had to kill one of his fellow Power Rangers or another human to save the world? How would that change him? Because it would. Let's not kid ourselves. Something like that would. How would it change characters like Trini, Jen, Wes, Mac? Mac was a robot, of course, but which is a different thing. Again, we've already altogether. But Kira, how would that change her? How would it change Tommy? Or Joel? Or any of those guys? I think this is something worth looking into. And yeah, you can say it's a kid show, but again, I don't believe in that. That's an excuse. That's what it is. Because we've seen plenty of shows where stuff like that happens. They're for kids. We've seen movies that are like that. But whatever. So I think I've made my point. Although, as some people say, it takes a long time to say nothing, which I probably did. But I seriously want to know what everybody's thoughts are on this matter. What would happen if the Power Rangers ever fought against human adversaries that they had to kill? Would that be an interesting story to you guys? Is that something you would like to see within the series? Again, I certainly would like to. But leave your comments down below. I'd like to know what you guys think of all this. And I look forward to reading them. Until then, I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening. And the tavern is now closed.